Hello everyone. This is the 35th part of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Chapter 101, Aquatic Trials, Friendships, Rat. Quinn looked down into the well known as Hadal encumbrance. It was definitely of the most intriguing concepts Quinn had seen, and only by researching the subject he had realized why it was called as such. Hadal, from the Greek god of the underworld, Hades. The underworld, which was the realm of Hades, was under the ground. Similarly, it would be the aquatic world that resided below the ground level. The Hadal encumbrance represented the ocean depths in its deepest regions, where oceanic trenches lay. A place where humans couldn't survive, and only those species evolved to withstand the harsh conditions would tread the waters where the warmth and light of the sun didn't reach. It is interesting how the creator was able to emulate the water pressure at ocean depths, noted Quinn as he stared down the well, and he could see the extraordinarily still water, remembering the pressure that would assault as he went down. One of the simplest definitions of pressure stated that pressure was the force exerted on a body. The air around the globe had weight, and it pressed against everything it touched. That pressure was called atmospheric pressure, or air pressure. It was the force exerted on a surface by the air above it as gravity pulled it to the earth. The oceans were deep. If one was to shave off all the continents and fill the trenches in the oceans with the ground from the continents, the entire globe would be covered with water about 2 miles in depth. And within those depths was the world of pressure. When one was in contact with air, a body would feel the pressure from the air, and it was dubbed air pressure. Similarly, when in contact with water, a body would feel the pressure from water and had the name hydrostatic pressure, or water pressure. But the main difference between air and water pressure was that air was 830 times less dense than water. Meaning that water pressure was much higher than air pressure. As one went down into a sea or an ocean, more water would get piled up on top and thus increase the weight of water above and thus increase the pressure on the body. Here, the water pressure increases much quicker than natural aquatic depth, said Quinn as he sat by the ledge with his chin resting on the palm. I guess this would be difficult for some people. Quinn had gone through 2 trials, Poseidon's Wrath and Tihom's Delight. And in those trials, Quinn had struggled a lot. Poseidon's Wrath required fine control over magic to get to the center. Without fine control, I would have stuck there without any progress. Tihom's Delight required ingenuity or maybe luck. Without the ripple sonar, I probably would have found the entrance, but it would have been completely up to luck. He continued to stare down the well and recited his thoughts about what was required by this trial. Hadal encumbrance simply requires power. Pure magical force to overcome, oppose, and repel the emulated oceanic pressure. I guess this trial is compatible with me. Quinn had magical power in abundance. He had deep magic reserves that had been built through the daily exhaustion of his magic. Ever since Quinn was 5, Quinn had used all of his magic every day. The only exception to that rule was the time he didn't have any control over his magic. That had given Quinn deep reserves of magic that were perfect for Hadal encumbrance. He just needed to optimize his magic usage against the pressure and pour his vast reserves into the magic till he reached the bottom. So unlike the first 2 trials, Quinn was having a breezy time in going through Hadal encumbrance. Alright, let's see if I can break my high score, said Quinn and dove into the well of water with accelerated water pressure increase. With his body facing downward and aligning his entire body horizontally with the surface of the water floor of the well, he sank down. The purpose of this posture was to decrease his surface area vertically. The pressure in the vertical water column changed very quickly, meaning that the pressure at his head would be significantly less than that at his feet. So to get a uniform pressure all over his body, he distributed his body surface area horizontally. That way, his body mostly would have a uniform pressure. As Quinn sank down, a cylindrical area constructed with water magic manifested around Quinn. The pressure inside the cylinder was normalized to the level of surface level pressure. In no time, Quinn reached 50% of the total depth without feeling any difficulty at all. The difficulty to keep the pressure normalized came when he hit 60% depth. I wonder if the pressure here is because of gravity manipulation or it is simply water magic that is pulling down the water. Quinn realized that the entire aquatic vault was based around water concepts. The instructions in the stone cave explicitly talked about laws, but that didn't mean that the trials were created via water magic. In Poseidon's Wrath, the vortex had been definitely created through water magic. But the vast array of conjuration and charm disablers weren't part of water magic. The sheer calmness of the water that even weakened Quinn's ripple sonar was definitely achieved by water magic in Tehom's Delight. But Quinn realized that the extensive sensory deprivation didn't have anything to do with water magic. The zero ambient noise could have been achieved through a sound dampening magic application. That state where the light was getting blocked could have been light magic weaved into the water and not an application of water magic. And just like that, the accelerated gradient pressure increase might have been accomplished by other magic and not water magic. But one thing Quinn was sure of was that if he was to complete the vault, he would need to use water magic to get past every trial. Not because the trials were closely related to water, sure, that was a part of it, but the real reason was that Quinn constantly used water magic as he thought using water magic made his job easier. It was clear that everything was related to water. From that, it could be inferred that the vault wanted Quinn to use water magic. And if he was to use water magic, then his journey would be a whole lot easier. Sure, inside Poseidon's Wrath, Quinn could have extensively studied conjuration magic and try different spell designs till he got a hit that wasn't covered by the wards, or he could design a new type of broom that didn't use the traditional broom charms and reinvent the wheel. But all of those required much more thinking and effort on Quinn's part just to make the end result easier. If he had something that would allow him to fly over the vortex into the center, he wouldn't have to struggle against the raging water, but at what cost? How much time and research would it take him to accomplish that? And when Quinn did create something like that, would he start the next trial? Would the broom that worked in Poseidon's trial be helpful in Tehom's Delight? No, it wouldn't be helpful. What would be effective was the knowledge and experience of water magic that he practiced and researched to get past one trial. That is why Quinn didn't try to find unique methods outside of water magic to solve the trials. Because Quinn knew that if he stuck with water magic, then it would make his job much smoother. And the results were showing right now. Quinn had plenty of magic to expend from his reserves. What he needed was simply to change how he was directing his magic. Poseidon's Wrath had driven him to gain fine control over water magic so that he wouldn't be blasted every time he tried to water magic. And that was working now when extreme pressures were bearing down on him. 90%. The water magic cylinder's surface thrummed with erratic ripples. A humongous pressure was being normalized by using water magic as Quinn applied an equal and opposite force. Just a little more, and I will pass this trial without much problems or injuries. Quinn dipped further down and reached 92% but stopped because the pressure inside his normalized cylinder suddenly increased. And Quinn could feel the pressure against his bones. Some pressure is leaking through. This is the limit for now. Quinn retreated by 1% and stayed at 91%, and carefully tried to figure out how to normalize the pressure back to the surface level. He was extremely careful because one mistake and the pressure would bear down on him, and his muscles wouldn't contract, which would seal away his movement capabilities, while the water inside his lung cavity with lower internal pressure would be pushed out, and he wouldn't be able to breathe. In the water column, Quinn swam alone inside the dangerous waters while trying to figure out how powerful the deep oceanic waters were. Scene break. It doesn't work that way, sighed Marcus as he sat in the Ravenclaw common room in front of a chessboard. The knight only moves 2 squares vertically and 1 square horizontally, or 2 squares horizontally and 1 square vertically. But why? The horsey should be able to charge straight ahead, spoke Luna as she stared at the knight chess piece on the wizarding chessboard. I have seen them. They are fast, you know? Wizard's chess was the magical variant of the classic board game chess, in which the pieces were enchanted to move of their own accord when commanded by the player. The moving chess pieces were reasonably sentient and could offer advice to the players who weren't good or experienced at the game. The white knight piece on the board turned its head towards and looked towards its commander. The animated knight chess piece wasn't sure how to proceed. The chess piece wasn't sure how to react to this situation. The magic that made it animated didn't cover what to do when the commander wanted the horsey to charge forward. It looked at his white companions as if to ask what to do, but they looked as confused as it was and shrugged towards the white knight. The black chess pieces, on the other hand, were laughing hysterically. And that made the white pieces feel embarrassed. Marcus turned his face towards Quinn, who was on the floor and sitting in the lotus position. He had his eyes closed, with his hand resting on his lap. Quinn explained to her that the night piece can't move straight ahead. Luna also turned towards Quinn. Quinn, why didn't you make the horsey move forward? Why can it only move one way? Quinn, who was in his mindscape sorting and strengthening his memories using occlumency, opened his eyes and looked at his two friends. Marcus was trying to teach Luna how to play chess on the wizarding chessboard that Quinn had made for Marcus as a birthday present. The board and pieces could change colors and shapes. The chessboard was a box with a grid on the top, and within the chessboard were number dials that could be used to alter the animation used by chess pieces to destroy each other when eliminating other chess pieces. He had also crammed a copious amount of chess strategies inside the chess set to advise inexperienced players. Quinn had ordered tons of chess books from both the non-magical and magical worlds because both worlds had different chess strategies and philosophies. Using that data, Quinn had given his chess set a more diverse recommendation advice system than any other chess set on the market. It was an elaborate set with extensive charm work that Quinn had devoted time to create for his friend's birthday. But it seemed that even he had failed to take Luna Lovegood into consideration. Quinn turned to look at the white chess pieces, who were holding his head while trying to think what it should do. Then he looked at Luna and gave an explanation. Luna, you see, the horse can charge straight ahead. But the knight on the horse doesn't want to move straight ahead, it only wants the horse to move a certain way. The horse belongs to the knight, so the horse will only listen to the knight. There is nothing we can do. Luna furrowed her brows and turned to stare at four knights on the chessboard, who stared back while stroking the back of their horses, making them neigh and nicer. I see. If that is the case, then that's fine, shrugged Luna, as she accepted Quinn's reason quite easily. She stood up and spoke to Marcus. I'm parched. I'm going for water, do you two want anything? Marcus politely refused while Quinn, who had once again closed his eyes, silently shook his head. When Luna went away, Marcus turned to Quinn and asked, what are you going to do when she finds a chess set with only a horse as a knight piece? Let's worry about that when the time comes, replied Quinn without opening his eyes. Marcus sighed before flipping a switch on the side of the chessboard that made the chess pieces stick to the grid so that when the box opened, they wouldn't fall off. He looked at the array of dials and switches that customized the playing experience and turned off the destruction feature when attacked. He didn't want to answer Luna's questions, which were full of curiosity, on why the chess pieces were acting mean to each other. Quinn, who had his eyes closed, smiled very softly at the sight of his friends getting along. Marcus was the one to invite Luna to play chess when he saw her sitting by Quinn's side, drawing random scribbles. And Luna had accepted the offer with enthusiasm and without doubt or skepticism. It had taken a lot of time for Marcus and Eddie to warm up to Luna because of her eccentric personality, and even though Quinn was still the connection between the two parties, the two boys and one girl had become friends. And Quinn felt happy because of that. Scene break. After learning the whereabouts of the Potter family from Pettigrew, Voldemort traveled to Godric's Hollow on the fateful night of October 31, 1981. After breaking the protections on the house, Voldemort was able to enter the residence and blasted the front door open, catching its inhabitants off guard. Fleamorn Potter, who had left his wand on the sofa, was murdered quickly trying to defend his wife and grandchildren. After Voldemort killed Fleamorn Potter, he proceeded to go upstairs to Harry's and Ivy's nursery, where the grandmother and the twins were trapped inside. Cornered in the nursery, Euphemia Potter was murdered after trying to oppose Voldemort and defend her grandchildren, the green light from this act actually lighting up the entire upper floor. When the Dark Lord then attempted to murder the one prophesied to defeat him, the protection laid down by his grandmother's loving sacrifice caused the killing curse to rebound. It destroyed Voldemort's corporeal body but unfortunately also took out a significant chunk of the cottage's upper floor. Harry was left with nothing but a lightning bolt scar on his forehead, and Ivy miraculously came out unscathed from the incident while Dark Lord Voldemort's powers were temporarily destroyed. Henceforth Harry was known as the boy who lived and was marked as Lord Voldemort's equal, thus sealing his fate. But there was someone else there who waited outside and saw the entire upper floor roof blew up. Peter Pettigrew, who nervously stood outside, was feeling ecstatic on the inside. He was the one who led the Dark Lord to the Potter cottage, and for that, he was going to be rewarded. But then he saw the roof blew up, and immediately Pettigrew knew something was wrong. The rat Animagus cautiously entered the cottage, and on the ground floor, he saw Fleamorn Potter on the ground. But after a short glance, Pettigrew ran up the stairs, and there he saw the dead body of Euphemia Potter and 2 crying infants. Pettigrew was stunned out of his mind. He couldn't believe the sight in front of him. He looked at the floor of the bust-up room and saw the unique wand of Dark Lord Voldemort lying down in front of him. The Dark Lord is dead. And Lily and James aren't here. Those thoughts scared the life out of Peter. He had betrayed the Order of Phoenix and corrupted to the evil side. That decision was made because Peter thought that he was choosing the winning side. He had stacked a stable life where he lived comfortably to risk it for a life of luxury and superiority. And the scene he was seeing screamed at him that the dream was over and he had destroyed his life. As Peter panicked from his innermost being, he heard the sound of Sirius's motorcycle from outside the house, with several pops of apparition following. They are here. In that moment of trepidation and fright, Peter picked up the wand from the floor, and because of the broken wards, he apparated out from the room itself and faded away from the scene. From there on he started following the events that led him to be captured and imprisoned in Azkaban. And now, 12 years later, Peter was inside his old house, sold to some old couple, who were dead from killing curse cast from a wand, that he had stolen from a chump who had left it on a table of a pub while refilling his drink. Peter, still as sickly and gaunt as he was when he got out of Azkaban, looked down on the bathroom floor and waved the wand to perform magic. Violently, every single tile was pulled out from the floor. The foundation then was butchered by blasting curses until 3 feet in depth and a wooden chest surface out on the top. The large chest levitated out of the dirt onto the floor. 2 snaps of unlocking, and Peter used his skeleton hands to open the lid to reveal the sole object inside the wooden chest. "Here you are," said Peter, his voice wispy and coarse, but his eyes shined with vigor and tinge of mania. Peter picked up the object and stared at it with fascination. The Lord's Wand. The symbol of his power. In his hand was a 13 inches long, crafted from yew, and affixed with a phoenix feather core. The phoenix feather wand showed its pickiness and didn't react to Peter's touch and magic. In the hand of Wormtail, the yew wand would be the same as a stick. From his pocket, Peter took out a rat and watched the familiar creature stunned and unconscious. "It is time to bring him back," declared Peter as he clutched the wand in his hand, closed his eyes, and imagined the day he would have his revenge. After covering up the mess in the bathroom, Peter left his old house and silently yet determinedly looked into a particular direction as a plan formed in his mind. Chapter 102, Marcus Belby, Deal of Friendship. Marcus Belby was a wizard and a Ravenclaw student at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and was a year above the famous Harry Potter. He was from the British Isles and of the magical Belby family. The Belby name wasn't famous in political circles or in the world of business. The place one would recognize the Belby name was in the academic circles. 2 members of the Belby family had substantial contributions to the study of magic. Flavius Belby had been the first person to come across a lethifold and survived to tell the tale. In addition, he had been a master in charms and well versed in the art of defense against dark arts. And he was the person who discovered the way to chase away lethifolds, also known as living shrouds, a carnivorous and extremely dangerous magical beast. It was also considered a dark creature because of its extremely aggressive and violent nature. In a surprise combat against a lethifold, Flavius had discovered that the lethifold could be driven away with a Patronus charm. That day Flavius, while fighting for his life, accomplished a never-before-seen act. Flavius went on to research his discovery and its credibility, and finally gave the world a method to drive away a dangerous creature like lethifold, a dangerous dark creature. His accomplishments were celebrated for centuries after his death, and he was immortalized on chocolate frog cards, and every magizoology book that mentioned lethifolds, credited for his contributions. The second famous member of the Belby family had an even greater impact than his ancestor. He had won an Order of Merlin, and was a potioneer who single-handedly had changed the lives and fates of people infected by lycanthropy. A person who had helped people's lives all around the globe and arguably became the most famous potioneer of the 20th century. Damocles Belby was a famous potioneer credited for the invention of the Wolfsbane potion, which was his greatest achievement among his other contributions to the field of potions. Before the Wolfsbane, the unwilling lycanthropes would rather die than suffer the consequences of losing sanity once every month for the rest of their lives. But after Wolfsbane, there was a beacon of hope in the lycanthrope community. Even though the wolfsbane potion didn't cure lycanthrope, it was the symbol of progress. It represented faith in magic, that with time, maybe, one day a cure would be found that would rid an unwilling person of the curse of lycanthropy. And from that family came Marcus Belby. He was not the brightest tool in the shed, but had a passion for learning that landed him in the Ravenclaw house. Whenever people met Marcus, they saw a soft-spoken, shy boy who was polite and curt. To people with whom Marcus was comfortable, he was a trustworthy friend who was a good listener, a keen observer, and a person who appreciated the little things. When you got him out of his shy shell, he happened to be a person with a bright personality, capable of talking at lengths on the topics he was interested in. And a friend who would be there for you no matter what. In Hogwarts, Marcus had two close friends, Eddie Carmichael and Quinn West. Eddie and Quinn had extroverted personalities. They were outgoing and socially confident. And one would think that Marcus would have problems getting along with the two people who had very different personalities than his, but that wasn't the case. He was very comfortable with his roommates. Marcus, who wasn't comfortable taking the lead on things, was grateful that Eddie and Quinn always knew what to do and would pull him along with them. It was easier for Marcus to talk to both Eddie and Quinn because he didn't need to initiate conversation, as the two of them would, for most of the time, would have topics and things to talk about. They would keep the conversation going while Marcus silently listened and sometimes chimed in when he wanted to contribute something. But these days, Marcus found himself alone frequently. Both of his best friends were busy with their own activities. Quinn West, his raven-haired friend, had always been a busy bee. He would start the day early, before him, and finish his day late, after him. Quinn would be busy during the classes doing the homework given to them. After classes, Quinn would disappear, and no one would know where to find him. In the evening, Quinn would spend his time in the AID office that Quinn had built in his second year, and at night, he would regularly break curfew to do his own things. The only reliable way to track down Quinn West was to approach him in the Great Hall, during mealtimes, where you would always, without fail, find him eating his food. For some reason, Quinn ate a lot of food for his size, and if he could help it, he would not miss a meal. Marcus usually hung out with Quinn between classes, meal times, and just before sleep time, when Quinn returned after curfew. Or if Quinn didn't decide to disappear. Then there was his second roommate, Eddie Carmichael, blonde-haired, talkative, loud, competitive, not afraid to say his opinions out loud, the exact opposite to Marcus. And many times, Marcus envied Eddie's personality. Till last year, Eddie had been free like Marcus and didn't have an extracurricular activity that required time from him. The two would hang around, spend time together playing gobstones, exploding snaps, Quidditch catching and any other games they could find to play. But this year, Eddie had decided to train for the Quidditch tryouts, and for that, he would wake up early and join Quinn for an early morning workout. And after classes, Eddie would do his own personal flying and quaffle control training. Eddie was way less busy than Quinn and had a lot of free time for playing around. And Marcus still spent much more time with Eddie than he did with Quinn. But things had still changed a lot from the last 3 years. Scene break. Sitting in a chair inside the Ravenclaw common room, Marcus looked around the room and roamed his eyes over the room. Most of his fellow Ravenclaw students, both younger and older, were studying alone or in groups, either completing their homework, studying in advance for the upcoming class, or going through extra recommended material from the exclusive Ravenclaw in-house library with the faculty recommendations, among other things. He sighed and looked at the busy people around him, and sighed. At least they know what they are doing. On the other hand, Another sigh escaped him, and he sunk further into his chair. A hand suddenly was placed on his shoulder, followed by, Now, don't sigh. At least not a heavy sigh like that one. Marcus raised his head to see Quinn standing there, smiling. His stone-grey-eyed friend had a bar stool in his hand. He then sat in his chair. As he watched Quinn sitting on a bar stool, Marcus thought about how in nearly 5 years he had known his friend. The number of times he had seen Quinn sitting on a chair with a backrest was frighteningly low. Even when the client chairs in the AID office were chairs with backrests, Quinn always sat behind his desk on a bar stool. Marcus looked at Quinn, who sat with the best posture he had ever seen from anyone he had met. Proper as always. Quinn always sits perfectly well, doesn't he? Thought Marcus, and put himself back together from his slumped posture in his chair. You know what they say, right? A sigh is an amplifier for people who suffer in silence, said Quinn. That made Marcus tilt his head and ask. So you don't sigh? At that, Quinn laughed and shook his head. Oh, no, I wish that was true. I sigh a lot, every day. Quinn then sighed, which made point his finger at himself and smile. See? I just did it. Let's not talk about me. Tell me about you, asked Quinn and tapped Marcus's thighs. Tell me, why were you slumped in the chair with that introspective expression that you tend to get on your face when you are overthinking stuff? This is it. How does he do it so smoothly, thought Marcus when he heard Quinn. Marcus was used to listening to Quinn. He noticed that whenever Quinn wanted the conversation to go his way, he would very smoothly turn the direction of the conversation to his interest. And right now, he was watching Quinn do it again. But it didn't bring discomfort to his heart to see his friend manipulating the conversation. The reason for that was because Marcus could see the expression on Quinn's face. Usually, whenever Quinn influenced or manipulated the conversation, he would have a situation-appropriate expression on his face. And the times that Quinn smiled, he would have a calm and restrained smile on his lips. That same smile would slightly change according to the need, and those small changes would change the meaning of the smiles: confident, friendly, dominant, polite, embarrassed, and any other smile that Quinn wanted to portray. But right now, Quinn didn't have that restrained smile. The smile on his face was wide and joyous, supportive, comforting, bright and free. This was the real deal and not something that was put on just because the situation demanded it. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Asked Quinn and touched his face with confusion. Is there something on my face? Marcus saw Quinn take out his wand and conjure a mirror to check out his face. Why are you smiling? Tell me, is there something wrong with me? Come on, tell me, stressed Quinn when he looked away from the mirror to Marcus's smiling face. It's nothing. I just remembered something funny. There is nothing on your face, chuckled Marcus. Quinn looked at Marcus with a suspicious face before banishing the mirror. Now, tell me what had turned you into sad sap, asked Quinn, getting the conversation back on track. Marcus stared at Quinn for a while before finally opening his mouth to speak. I was thinking about how both you and Eddie have something you guys do so seriously. It was clear to Marcus that Quinn loved magic. His friend spent time reading books out of the course material. This wasn't uncommon for a Ravenclaw, but to put it clearly, Marcus would rarely see Quinn read the course material. Most of the time, he would see Quinn reading something that wasn't even close to what was being taught in the school. Even recently, Marcus had seen Quinn had been going through numerous books on healing magic and biology. The number of books that changed Quinn's hands had been baffling to Marcus. Then there was Eddie, who had started playing and practicing Quidditch because he wanted to get a girlfriend. Eddie was a person who got dialed in when motivated. He devoted so much time and effort to Quidditch that if one was told the real reason behind his actions, they wouldn't believe it. Of course, Marcus and Quinn knew about Eddie's ultra-competitive nature from their early days of friendship. Eddie liked to win and succeed, and when he didn't win, he would get upset, but instead of throwing a tantrum, Eddie would try again to see if he could win. Quinn and Eddie had been playing the card game Concentration for 3 years, and despite not winning a single time, Eddie would challenge Quinn regularly. Even after losing for 3 years, Eddie's competitiveness didn't let him back down. Eddie was so competitive that he even challenged Quinn at magic. The two would often play the magical game of tug of a Accio. In the game, 2 to more people would simultaneously cast an Accio spell on an object. The objective of the game was to pull the target object towards them. And the one who was able to get the target object near them would win. Despite knowing that Quinn was better at magic, Eddie would often initiate a game, trying to defeat Quinn at magic, which for obvious reasons never panned out. But that didn't stop Eddie from time and time challenging Quinn. Such was Eddie's personality. You have magic. You love it so much, we all knew that just after a few days of our meeting in the first year. The time you put in just shows how much you love it. Even Eddie is dialed in on Quidditch and won't leave his broom in his free time. That always wants to win idiot won't stop till he makes it to the team, sighed Marcus, looking into his lap and whispering in a downtrodden tone. Only, I have nothing to do. I don't feel passionate about stuff like you guys do. And, well. He paused because it affected him a lot. I feel left out. Like I am wasting my time and that you guys are going to leave me behind. Marcus looked up from his lap and saw Quinn staring at him with wide eyes. Immediately, Marcus thought he had made Quinn would feel uncomfortable and felt embarrassed because of it. He was about to speak up, but Quinn interjected. Marcus, do you remember my sister, Leah? You met her at Hogsmeade, remember? Marcus blinked at the question and silently nodded for the reply. You see, my sister travels a lot, like, a whole lot. She travels almost the entire year and goes to different parts of the world. One week she would be in Europe and the next week in Australia, spoke Quinn, but Marcus wasn't following where Quinn was going with this. But you see, my sister doesn't decide where she goes. My grandfather decides where she is deployed, and he still sends her away. He's been doing that for a couple of years. Can you guess why he does that? Marcus silently shook his head. He barely knew Quinn's sister, he had no idea what Quinn's grandfather was like. My grandfather is trying to make Leah experience new and different things. He keeps sending her to different places to handle business, and while a representative is needed to communicate between countries, there is no need to send Leah as much as he has been sending her. Quinn beamed as he continued. My grandfather knows Leah quite well. He knows that if you give Leah new and exciting things, she will try to find more things about them and see what it's all about. So by sending her to different countries that are different from ours, he stimulates Leah's curiosity by introducing her new experiences. Marcus listened as Quinn spoke, and he felt like he understood what Quinn was talking about, though it was out of his reach. Eddie's character will make him pursue things just because he wants to win, but nobody knows how long he will keep doing things that way. He might get bored and drop them to pursue other interests. You say that you don't have anything you are passionate about. And I will tell you this, neither is Eddie. I think the reason Eddie does all these different things and tries to succeed is that he is trying to find something that clicks with him. Marcus saw Quinn raise his hand and bring it near him, Marcus, to repeatedly poke his chest. The only difference between you and Eddie is that he tries all kinds of things and tries to get better at them. Eddie is trying to find something he enjoys, and he has already found one thing. He enjoys playing games, and that might not be something of importance, but it is still something Eddie clearly enjoys. Marcus, if you want to find something that clicks with you, have to do new things. Quinn then placed his hand on his own chest and continued. Yes, I love magic, and that is good for me, hooray. But don't you think I spend too much time on it? Look at the three of us. You and Eddie hang out and have fun while I am alone doing who knows what. Pointed out Quinn, and Marcus felt surprised to hear Quinn speak like this. I spend so much time on magic that I have barely any time left for other things. I love to play violin and piano, but because I spend so much time in the library in the AID office, and practicing magic, I haven't played my violin for weeks, closer to a month, and that sucks. Then there is the piano which calms me down. And I haven't touched the keys for so long. I can't spend enough time with you guys. I miss so many things that you two do, many times. I don't understand the inside jokes and then realize that I didn't understand them because I miss things, yet again, and that sucks. I know it sucks, and despite that, I don't try to manage my time better. Marcus felt more and more surprised as Quinn mockingly chuckled at himself. You and I aren't that much different, you know? While you haven't tried to explore new things to see what makes you interested, I have wrapped myself in this thing so tightly that I haven't tried something new in a long while and am losing touch with things that I did earlier. Sure, I learn new magics, and it is so much fun for me. And while that might be seen as doing new things, to me personally, it is the same thing. Magic is magic no matter what the branch. And my own view is what matters at the end. Marcus didn't know that Quinn felt like this about himself. The Quinn that Marcus knew was always prepared, confident, a person who commanded any room and company of people he was among. A person who had everything figured out and had his life set. But now, here he was listening to Quinn vent about things that he didn't know existed a few minutes back. And while Marcus knew that he should feel sympathetic for his friend, Marcus felt good. Quinn sharing all this made Marcus feel close to him. It made Quinn someone who wasn't flying miles above him, but someone who was right beside him. So step out of that comfort zone and try to do new things. Out in the wide world, many unique, intriguing, entertaining, mind-opening things exist. It is a complete waste and pity if you don't try them out. You only live once, Marcus, and it isn't too late to try them. Seriously. If you don't have something you aren't passionate about, then find things, try them out. I guarantee that you will find something that suits you, something that will feel like it was made especially for you. Quinn suddenly and abruptly stood up and stared down at the surprised Marcus. Let's make a promise. No, a deal. As long as you try out new things without worry, I will try to get out the bind I have trapped myself in and get myself back to try things, both old and new. Marcus felt his heart beat faster and felt his blood boil with enthusiasm as he stood up. He grabbed and shook Quinn's hand tightly as if the firm grip signified the sincerity of his determination and commitment to this deal, with Quinn. Deal? Questioned Quinn, staring into Marcus's that now showed seemingly boundless energy. Deal, affirmed Marcus, smiling a curve from the bottom of his heart. Oh make, two weirdos. Eddie Carmichael entered the Ravenclaw common room after performing maneuvers he deemed necessary to be in a chaser's arsenal, after an intense session of flying around Hogwarts. Ah, my chest hurts, groaned Eddie as he stepped inside, and the first thing he saw with his tired eyes were his two roommates staring at each other with passionate eyes and ardent smiles on their faces, their hands locked in a handshake as they stood in the smack-dab middle of the Ravenclaw room. He stood there for half a minute, staring at his roommates, but they didn't move or break the handshake. What the hell are these two weirdos doing? But looking at them didn't give him answers, and he was exhausted. So Eddie acted like he didn't know them and walked past them to his dorm room. This marks the end of part 35 of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.